The unprovoked attack. The unprovoked attack on his patrol vessel at the fringes of human space could mean only one thing. Those scaly alien bastards wanted war. And when humans get angry, when their survival is threatened, no force in the universe can stop their ferocious wrath. The klaxons blared as Captain Philip Jones' crew scrambled to battle stations. Tellerate plasma torpedoes and particle beams hammered the human ship's advanced energy shields in a relentless onslaught. The shields strained, flickering on the verge of collapse. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire, all batteries. Philip barked, gripping the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles white. His vessel twisted and rolled, narrowly evading the brunt of the enemy barrage. Human railguns and laser cannons spat defiance at the attacking Tellerate ships. Faster-than-light sensors showed more enemy vessels pouring out of hyperspace by the dozen. This was no mere border skirmish. It was a full-scale invasion, an act of war against humanity itself. If the Tellerates established a beachhead here, billions of human lives on the colony worlds beyond would be at their non-existent mercy. The despicable lizards would bombard planets, massacre civilians, and plunder resources. Humanity faced enslavement or extinction. Philip had to hold the line. He needed to buy time for reinforcements from the human stellar navy to arrive, no matter the cost. His ship and crew were hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned, but they would fight to their last defiant breath. Comms, transmit an emergency FTL message on all Alliance frequencies. Philip snapped. Report massive Tellerate invasion imminent at my coordinates. Request immediate assistance from any fleet assets in range. Repeat, Tellerate invasion in progress. We're fighting them off, but we can't hold them for long. As the comms officer frantically dispatched the warning, Philip stared at the tactical display, watching Tellerate ships blot out the stars. His jaw tightened with grim determination. Like hell, he'd let humanity's enemies pass without making them bleed for every inch. If he had to die so humans could live, so be it. Thus began the desperate first battle of the Tellerate War. If Philip Jones failed, humanity's light would be snuffed out. He vowed that he and his crew would hold the Tellerates here or die trying. The sensors screamed with more contacts dropping out of hyperspace. They were completely surrounded. But Philip's features were hard, his eyes glinting with cold fury rather than despair. He punched the shipwide comm. Listen up. Those Tellerate bastards mean to wipe out every man, woman, and child on Aegis Prime. Millions will die if they get past us. We can't let that happen. We hold the line right here, right now, no matter what it takes. A chorus of fierce battle cries erupted from every deck. His people were with him to the bitter end. Philip's hands flew across the console, diverting power from the faltering shields to the engines. The ship leaped forward, banking and pivoting, threading the needle between the massive Tellerate dreadnoughts. Keep them focused on us, Philip barked. Don't let a single one of them get in range of the colony. The human ship danced through the enemy formations, pulse lasers and railgun rounds stitching the void. The Tellerates swarmed after them like enraged hornets, their heavier ships lumbering to keep up. Sir, I have a firing solution on the lead dreadnought's command bridge, Tactical called out. Their shields are fluctuating. Hit it with everything we've got. Philip roared. A concentrated barrage of lasers, particle beams, and missiles slammed into the dreadnought's exposed bridge. The structure crumpled and exploded, leaving the mighty warship drifting and burning. The Tellerate fleet fell into momentary disarray at the loss of their lead ship. Quantum torpedoes, full spread. Philip shouted, seizing the split second of confusion. Punch us a hole through those bastards. A dozen shimmering projectiles leaped from the human ship's tubes, each one homing in on a Tellerate vessel with merciless precision. The enhanced warheads detonated in blinding flashes, ripping through the enemy shields like tissue paper. Tellerate ships blossomed into brief blazing stars. All ahead full. Get us through that gap right now. The human ship shot forward, bowling through the hole torn in the enemy formation. Directly ahead loomed the massive, sinister shape of the Tellerate flagship, High Admiral K's personal warship, a juggernaut bristling with enough firepower to glass a planet. Incoming. Brace for impact. The flagship's antimatter cannons erupted in a storm of hell. Beams of blinding white slashed across space, slamming into Philip's ship like the fists of an angry god. The human shields flickered and died under the onslaught. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and damage alarms wailed as the lights went out, plunging the bridge into darkness broken only by the red emergency lighting. Hull breaches, decks 7, 13, and 19. Someone shouted over the din. "We're venting atmosphere. Shields are gone." Philip felt his ship shuddering and bucking beneath him like a wounded animal. They couldn't take another hit like that. This was it, the end, but he'd be damned if he'd let the Tellarites have the satisfaction of an easy kill. "Divert everything to the engines and weapons," he snarled. "Ram that flagship. Shove our torpedoes down their throats. Let's take these bastards with us." With the last of its power, the human ship hurled itself forward in a suicidal charge, quantum torpedoes and particle beams lashing out in a final defiant barrage. The flagship filled the view screen, Tellarite weapons stabbing out to meet them. The two ships collided in an apocalyptic explosion that seared the void like a newborn sun. The flagship disintegrated under the point-blank assault, vanishing in a maelstrom of plasma and debris. The human ship was instantly vaporized. On the Tellarite ships, still reeling from the loss of their flagship, sensors registered the spreading radiation and wreckage where High Admiral K's warship had been. Confusion and dismay rippled through the fleet. They had expected an easy slaughter of the inferior humans, not this fanatical resistance. With K dead, the invasion fell into disarray. The Tellarite fleet milled uncertainly, their coordination gone, unsure whether to press the attack or regroup. That hesitation was all the time the desperate human forces needed. Aegis Prime was saved from annihilation, but the victory had cost the life of Captain Philip Jones and his crew. Their sacrifice would be remembered forever, their names inscribed in the annals of history. When the Tellarite invasion finally came, smashing into human space in all its savage fury, the defenders would remember Philip Jones. They would remember how one ship, hopelessly outnumbered, had stood against the odds. They would remember that no matter how dire the circumstances, humanity would never stop fighting. They would make the Tellarites pay in blood for every inch of space. Philip Jones had shown them the way. Rallying the forces. When news of Captain Philip Jones's sacrifice and the Tellarite invasion hit the media feeds, the human worlds erupted in a frenzy of shock and outrage. Videos of the brutal Tellarite assault, captured by recon drones, played on every screen. Philip's face became a rallying cry, a symbol of human defiance in the face of annihilation. The United Earth government wasted no time. The president herself addressed the nation, her voice steely with resolve. This unprovoked act of aggression will not go unanswered. As of this moment, we are at war. Every resource, every ship, every soldier will be mobilized to defend our worlds and push the Tellarite scourge back into the void that spawned them. Across 100 worlds, shipyards and factories roared to life. Massive human warships, each a gleaming blade of metal and ceramic, rolled off assembly lines and rocketed into space. Fleets gathered, crewed by men and women united in their determination to make the lizards pay. On the Tellarite border, 1,000 ships converged, the vanguard of Earth's might. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, and carriers, each bristling with the most advanced weaponry the human race had ever conceived, formed a formidable wall. At the tip of the spear flew the Sigma Cohort, humanity's ultimate warriors. Born of cutting-edge genetic engineering and relentless training, each Sigma trooper was a perfect fusion of raw physical prowess and unmatched combat skill. Their powered armor, a miracle of technology, granted them strength and speed far beyond ordinary humans. Wraparound helmets concealed their faces, presenting only a blank, menacing visor to the enemy. Admiral Akira Tanaka stood ramrods straight on the bridge of his flagship, the HS Yamato, his eyes locked on the tactical display. The Tellarite fleet around Janus Prime outnumbered his battle group 3-1, their warships arrayed in a phalanx of bristling weapons and thick armor. But Tanaka had a few tricks up his sleeve. At his signal, swarms of human hunter-killer drones burst from the launch bays of his ships, angling toward the Tellarite formations. The drones wove and dodged through the storm of point defense fire, their adaptive ECCM keeping them one step ahead of the enemy's targeting systems. Explosions peppered the Tellarite ships as the drones unleashed their payloads, clouds of hypervelocity shrapnel shredding armor and severing weapon emplacements. The Tellarites reeled, their defensive fire slackening as they struggled to repel the robotic swarm. All ships, commence phase shift. Stealth units, begin your attack runs, Tanaka ordered. The human vessels shimmered and vanished from sensors as their phase shift drives engaged, rendering them all but invisible. From their midst, flights of stealth fighters peeled away, gliding silently toward the enemy fleet. The fighters struck like wraiths, ripple-firing salvos of graviton torpedoes into the heart of the Tellarite formation. The warheads detonated in flashes of blinding white, artificial gravity wells wrenching at the Tellarite ships. Power systems flickered and died, shields sputtering out as the enemy dreadnoughts went dark and drifting. "Admiral, the Tellarite formation is in disarray," Tanaka's sensor officer called out. "Their fleet cohesion is faltering." Tanaka nodded grimly. "Helm, take us in. It's time we show these lizards what real firepower looks like." The Yamato surged forward, her phase shift drive disengaging as she dropped her cloak of invisibility. Weapon ports along her flanks arised open, the muzzles of her experimental plasma lance cannons yawning wide. Tanaka raised a fist. "Fire." The Yamato shuddered as her cannons roared to life, beams of star-core heat stabbing across the void. A Tellarite dreadnought, its shields already weakened by the graviton torpedoes, took the full brunt of the barrage. Armor boiled away, the beams punching through meter after meter of hull plating. The dreadnought staggered, secondary explosions ripping through its innards. Tanaka's gunners didn't let up, walking their fire across the dreadnought's superstructure until the entire vessel disintegrated in a blossom of plasma and debris. Two more dreadnoughts fell in quick succession, the Yamato's guns claiming a grim tally. The Tellarite returned fire was sporadic and panicked, their fleet thrown into chaos by the sudden, devastating attack. "Admiral, I have firing solutions on the remaining enemy command ships," Tanaka's weapons officer reported, his voice taut with barely suppressed excitement. Tanaka's eyes glinted. "Boarding teams, stand by. Marine units, prepare for close-quarters combat. We're going to cut the head off this snake." Acknowledgement lights winked on his command console as the orders went out. From the Yamato's flanks, assault landers and breaching pods launched, rocketing toward the Tellarite command ships. The enemy point defenses lashed at the oncoming craft, explosions filling the void, but the assault wave pushed through, landers smashing into the hulls of the command ships like armored fists. Hatches blew open, and squads of Sigma troopers poured out, storming into the enemy vessels with weapons blazing. In the cramped corridors and smoke-filled chambers of the Tellarite ships, the humans and lizards clashed in a vicious melee. Powered armor met natural armor. Combat blades flashed, plasma rifles barked. But the Sigmas were relentless, honed by grueling training and burning with the desire to avenge their fallen comrades. Deck by deck, the humans pushed deeper into the Tellarite ships, leaving a trail of broken lizard bodies in their wake. The enemy commanders fell, cut down by ruthless close assault tactics and the sheer ferocity of the human boarders. As the last Tellarite command ship fell to the Sigmas, Tanaka allowed himself a tight smile. The remaining enemy fleet, leaderless and demoralized, was already breaking apart, scattering before the human onslaught. "All ships, press the attack," Tanaka barked. "Don't let a single one of them escape. We'll chase them all the way back to their stinking homeworld if we have to." The human battle group surged forward, weapons hammering the fleeing Tellarite ships. Janus Prime's orbit was transformed into a killing field as the lizard vessels died one by one, torn apart by the vengeful human guns. It was a victory that would resound through the ages, a turning point in the war against the Tellarites. Against the cutting-edge technology and indomitable spirit of humanity, the Tellarites had finally met their match. The once unstoppable lizard advance had been broken, their aura of invincibility shattered. But Tanaka knew this was only the beginning. The Tellarites were a proud and ruthless foe, and they would not take this defeat lying down. Even now, they would be marshalling their reserves, preparing for the next round. No matter, the human race would be ready for them. Whatever it took, however long it took, humanity would fight on. For every hero like Philip Jones who fell, 100 more would rise to take their place. The Tellarites had started this war. Humanity would finish it. On Prometheus, a dusty rock on the edge of human space, a lone platoon of Sigma troopers dug in around a vital communications relay. Without the relay, the human fleets would be deaf and blind, easy prey for the Tellarites. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan crouched behind a low stone wall, his armor's mimetic camouflage blending seamlessly with the terrain around him. His soldiers scanned the horizon, weapons primed. They all knew what was coming. The ground shook, a deep bass rumble filling the air, growing louder with each passing second. Sullivan raised a clenched fist, signaling his troops to ready up. Hold positions. Wait for my signal. Over the ridge came a tide of black metal, the first ranks of the Tellarite assault force. Dozens of hover tanks skimmed over the rocky ground, their heavy plasma cannons swiveling to lock onto the human positions. Behind them swarmed hundreds of Tellarite soldiers, their scales glinting in the harsh sunlight. 10-to-1 odds, just the way the Sigma Corp liked it. Sullivan raised his other hand, a small cylindrical object clutched in his armored fist. The Tellarites opened fire, tanks and infantry letting loose with a storm of plasma. The air burned, rock vaporizing under the onslaught. Now, Sullivan roared, his thumb stabbing down on the detonator. All across the Tellarite line, the ground erupted in massive explosions, geysers of dirt, and fire hurling tanks into the air like toys. The shaped charges, planted by Sigma scouts in the dead of night, ripped gaping holes in the enemy formation. Sullivan vaulted the wall, his troopers surging forward beside him. He brought his shoulder-mounted cannon to bear, the weapon humming with barely restrained power. The barrel flashed, and a column of tanks simply vanished, scythed down by a lance of blinding plasma. Tellarites screamed, their weapons swinging desperately to track the humans sprinting through their shattered ranks. Sullivan dodged and wove, his armor's exoskeleton granting him supernatural speed. He unslung a bandolier of grenades from his chest, priming them with a single command thought to his suit's eye. A blur of motion, he danced through the Tellarite lines, the grenades leaving his hands in a rapid staccato. Each one landed with pinpoint precision. Under a tank, at the feet of an enemy squad, inside an APC's open hatch. The explosions blended together into a continuous roar. All around him, Sullivan's troopers engaged the enemy head-on. Sigma armor against Tellarite scales. It was no contest. The humans moved faster, struck harder, their power-armored fists crunching through chitinous hides like hammers through rotten wood. A Tellarite tank swiveled its turret, desperate to bring its cannon to bear on Sullivan. He charged straight at it, zigzagging faster than the eye could follow. At the last second, he leaped, jump jets in his armor hurling him high into the air. He landed on the tank's hull with an impact that dented metal and ripped the turret hatch open with a single savage twist. A burst from his wrist-mounted plasma repeater turned the tank's crew to ash. He bounded to the next tank and the next, leaving a trail of burning wreckage in his wake. His troops followed, a wedge of destruction scything through the Tellarite horde. In minutes, it was over. The once mighty Tellarite assault force lay shattered and burning, their advance utterly broken. Sullivan stood atop a smoldering tank, his armor splashed with ichor, his troops rallying to him. The relay was safe, Prometheus was safe, and across a dozen worlds, the same scene played out as the Sigma Corps met the Tellarite invasion head-on and crushed it beneath their armored boots. Humanity's finest had drawn a line in the sand, a line written in Tellarite blood. The war was just beginning, but one thing was certain. The Tellarites would learn to fear the Sigma Corps and the indomitable will of the human race. For every hero like Philip Jones who fell, 100 more would rise to take their place, each one ready to make the ultimate sacrifice in defense of Earth and all her colonies. The Tellarites wanted a war. Now they had one. And humanity would not rest until the lizards were driven back to their holes, and the safety of human worlds was secured once and for all, no matter the cost. The battle for supremacy. As the Tellarite ground forces reeled from the ferocious Sigma Corps counter-assault, the battle for supremacy raged in the stars above. UEG battle groups clashed with the main Tellarite armadas in a series of sprawling engagements that lit up the void with the fire of 1,000 suns.